All right, hello. This is John Krysinsky, Pittsburgh Soccer Now. We have a special interview here today. Some really exciting news coming down our way in the Pittsburgh area as far as soccer goes. Century United, which is an extremely well-established club in our region for a number of years, has over a week or so ago announced the formation of a WPSL team on the girls' side. And then just today, we just learned that they will be taking part in the OVPL, which is the Ohio Valley Premier League, I believe. So with me today is Dave Gray. Dave is, he's kind of wears a lot of different hats in the soccer world in Pittsburgh area, but he's obviously been with Century United for many years. And also, you may know him as the head coach of the Upper St. Clair girls program as well. So Dave, thanks so much for joining me. I just really appreciate you having you on today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and this is pretty exciting stuff. So let's try to get caught up here. So obviously the WPSL announcement came out a little while ago, and then today we've got this news about the OVPL. So why don't you just update everybody in terms of your organization, the Century United, and this investment of looking at providing more opportunities for players as they get older and there's in those college years, and looking for the highest levels possible to play.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, one of the things that we really thought, like over the past couple of years, we've been trying to put this together. Probably 2 years ago, we started on a path. There was actually some talk that after the regiment was kind of disbanding, that we were gonna take that over. I just, at that point in time, I don't think, with the administrative team, we thought that we were ready to do that at that point. So we've been trying to work on this for a couple of years. And last year we were about ready to jump in with 2 feet, and then COVID happened. And then we jumped out as quickly as we could jump in. So this year we decided we're going to ramp it up and we're going to get after it. And I think the whole basis of it is we feel like as a club, we've been working really hard over the past, 10, 15 years to develop ourselves as a club. We've kind of risen up the ranks, and we've done well, and we've been lucky enough that we've worked with some really outstanding players and kids, and we've got some great coaches within the establishment. So we've got all these kids out there playing now that are asking what should they be doing in the summer, and we thought, where better for them to play than to come back and play for Century with us.
And so, like you said, it's been something that's a number of years in the making. Obviously, Hotspurs did, they jumped on the opportunity as well. They got involved on the men's side, but now they're getting involved on the women's side, which I think is going to be pretty exciting to have 2 Pittsburgh area teams. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and that'll be more fun for us at Pittsburgh Soccer Now. We can definitely cover those games for sure. So yeah, I mean, just in terms of the WPSL, first of all, what does it take to get involved at that level? What kind of conversations were had with the organization? I believe they have over 100 teams nationally. They're essentially the second division because the way it's set up with women's soccer in the United States. So what was that like starting with them?
So we've been discussing with some of the local college coaches in the area, and we have a good pipeline with those guys, and we have kind of been pushed in the direction, towards the WPSL. So we reached out to Sean Young, who's the guy that runs the league. And, he tracks back a little bit with Ben Waldrum and some of those guys. So he did his research, came back to us and thought it'd be a good platform. What was important to us was if we were going to do this, we wanted to do it to the best of our ability. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't just going to enter the league just so we had a place for kids to play. We wanted to make sure that when we were jumping into the league, we were going to have the platform and all the support networks to make sure and make it happen right. So facilities, obviously, number one. And with us obviously owning Cold Spring, or not owning Cold Springs, but owning Century Field, and our partnership, long-term partnership with Cold Springs, we felt like we had that. And then the coaches we were able to put in place just within the house of who we have at Century, the experience that those guys have. We felt like this was the time that we could put it together, put it on the field, and really provide an absolutely fantastic experience for the players that are coming into play. And when we met with Sean, he was so inviting. He was such a great guy, and he was so excited about us coming on board that he got us even more excited about joining. So the conversations went on. It was a pretty quick process, and they put us in the league, and we've been kind of running with it since.
And now, so what's the timetable? I see some of the players, a lot of them are going to be current college-based players, but there might be some that are, finishing up or maybe having senior campaigns this weird college soccer year. We can talk about that in a second too. But yeah, and then so what's the process there? I saw a few announcements of players on the girls' side at least.
Yeah, so right now we've gone out, we've gone after the kids that, mostly right now these were our kids that have been within the program, kids that have graduated, kids that are playing at a high level out there, that the kids that have been involved with us, right, that we're looking for the opportunity. Now we're starting to stretch out a little further. We are, we're talking to some of the colleges about, recommendations from them for players that come in. We've got some outside players now. Just recently we brought in Marissa Kren and Bree Valentovich. So we have some kids coming in from over on the Beadling side as well that we have high regard for. That think they can, be a good, not only come in and help the team, but I think good for some of those kids to come in and get the experience. And we know that they're class and they've been trained the right way. So I think we're expanding in that direction now. We'll look to have a tryout probably later in the year. The one thing that's just really tricky right now is I don't think any of us are really sure what's going to happen with the COVID thing, as far as some of the schools are playing spring seasons, are they even going to let them come home during the spring? So, how do we have the tryout and how do we do it from there? And then internally, we like you had said before, we also have some of our kids that are our senior players. There's kids within those 02, 03 age groups, and some of the 04s that are going to get an opportunity to come in and train with this team and start preparing. We have kids like Mackenzie Leader and Brooke Olery, and Maddie DeLucio and Kendall Donati, kids that are going on to play at a pretty high level. For them to get in and get an experience this summer against players that they're going to be playing with and against, once they go into play, will be an absolute great experience for those kids. So we're kind of we're spreading our net pretty wide right now, cast our net pretty wide right now. We do have some particulars that we're looking for. We want to make sure that whatever the pool of players are, that the level is always high, so that the training that's happening, on the field is always going to be at quality for everybody there. And then we're looking to do the very best we can to provide that experience for those kids.
Yeah, that's that experience factor, and we saw that the Hotspurs did their first year. What we noticed was that they were bringing players up from their, I guess the 16s and the 15s. I don't know about the 15s, but the 16s and 17s were at least training. Is that kind of a thought process there? Is that there's going to be some kind of interconnected training, and they'll be doing some different things together with the somewhat younger players, but players that are looking for those higher, level opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll look. We do that as a club in general. We watch our players throughout the ranks, and we've got some players that need a challenge at a higher level. We've bumped them up 2 age groups before, even for just training purposes, to make sure that we're challenging them at the right level. So it'll be no different here. We'll have a tab on all our players. We'll look at the players that probably are ready for that opportunity, regardless of what their age is. If they're ready for the opportunity, we're certainly going to make it available to them to let them get in there and experience it.
Yeah, and then a quick aside, you talked a little bit about the COVID factor. What's going on this winter for all of programs like yours and youth and developmental soccer programming? I mean, it's got to be unique, but at the same time, I think we've grown, and you just went through a high school season too. Mm-hmm. We've sort of grown accustomed to what we need to do to keep everybody safe, but also keep the programs running, keep the players on, technically on top of their games and fitness wise and all those different things. Right? What are you guys doing?
And that's it. It was funny. Pat and I were talking the other day. It's amazing. The kids have adapted to the masks. They don't phase them anymore. They just play with them on. Yeah. There was, I think, a little bit of anxiety about them, straight away in the beginning, but now they seem to be okay. The coaches are okay with them. I think we've all learned over the past 6 months what social distancing really means. So I think we do the very best with the sizes we have, and we do our try and maintain as much normalcy as we can, given the circumstances. So, standard stuff. There's still all the COVID protocols, temperature checks, hand washing stations, all that stuff. Coaches, taking the proper measures when we need to. But it's certainly been interesting. It's been very eye-opening. I really got the first full wrath of it with the high school season this year. It was interesting, but I thought the kids were fantastic. Like they didn't bicker about it. They don't, and they're not complaining. They're just, I think they're really happy to be out in the field. I think they're really happy to be training. and get that energy out of them, and get all those fluids moving again. And I think for us as coaches, it's been the same thing. Like being around the kids is electric. When you're around them, they can certainly boost your energy. And for all of us, I think it's paid off for all of us to keep moving as best we can, with the mitigations, but keep moving and keep the kids engaged and keep our coaches engaged as well.
Yeah, that's to me, that's the biggest challenge, is just, getting out there. I think we've noticed that the players are very motivated to not, obviously nobody wants to get sick or nobody wants to get COVID, but adding responsibilities and things to be motivated for and to do, it just seems like it's sort of worked itself out for a lot of the high school, and now we're seeing at the youth level all the different programming. But all right, so let's talk about, you mentioned briefly, Fort Pitt Regiment. That was an NPSL team that you were an assistant coach with, and you coached under the legend John Kowalski. Just a quick, any good stories or just experiences regarding that? That was your first opportunity to kind of work with that type of club. So you have that experience, as you mentioned. So what have you learned from that, and the experience of being with, somebody like John, and how that, what you'll do to translate that as a general manager for both of these clubs?
First of all, I can tell you that, I'm lucky enough to have known John forever. Went through some recruiting with him when I was a player. The opportunity to work with John those years at Fort Pitt Regiment was priceless for me as a coach. I think we're always trying to climb the ladder. We're always trying to better ourselves and improve so we can give back to our kids. But I spent those years with John, and I can't even begin to tell you how important it was to me in my development as a coach, not just as a coach, but as a person. John is a very unique guy, and he seems to know how to push all the right buttons, and he knows when to be tough on him. He knows when to be easy on him. He knows when to scald them. He just seems to get it all from all the experiences he had. And I was so lucky. I spent that time as a goalkeeper coach, and even sometimes a goalkeeper when goalkeepers were on loan. As much as I kept telling him, John, I'm too old for this. You're going to get me killed in this net. I would hop in and play a bit, but John is special, and he's a guy that in this area, I can't think of anybody more influential than he has been to soccer in the Pittsburgh area. And for me to have spent those couple of years with him, and not only just as him as a mentor for me, but more as a friend for me. The things that John has done for me and the things that he's taught me, I completely redeveloped everything I was doing after working with him, just because the ideas, the passion, the things he sees, and working with guys at that level, like you mentioned, I was lucky enough to spend a couple of years at Duquesne with Al Alvine. But when you get to work with those 18 to 25-year-olds, it's certainly a different environment. They're different players. They have different, wants and needs as players. And he was able to relay that stuff to me and help me transition from being a senior coach, 16 to 18, to really understanding how to work with those 20 to 26-year-old guys. So John, to me, he's a treasure. He's an unbelievable man as a human being, and he's a guy that I will forever be grateful for.
And that's a good point you mentioned during that response. Is you've got now 18 to 23, 24, 25-year-olds maybe. That what's the goal for, in terms of what you want to provide for them in terms of this opportunity, but also what just your coaching staff, and I see Erica Marshall is going to be the head coach of the WPSL team, and John Nachina, who coaches at Allegheny, I believe, will be coaching the OVPL team. So just what can this program do for these players? These clubs?
One, I think if there's anything that you'd asked earlier, if anything I take out of the regiment that I would try and improve, I think it was stability. John and I were, I don't think anybody will ever know the amount of work that went on behind the scenes with that team, but with the two of us beyond coaching. So I think an environment with a coaching staff that is young, they're smart, they're energetic, they know the game. I think stability on the facility wise, that they will train on the best facility, the best surfaces all the time as well, play games. And then the level always maintaining the level with those guys and making sure that every time they step on the field, that it's not just, they're not going through the motions, that when we send them back to their colleges, they're going back to their colleges as better players, or they're entering their college season as better players because of the experience that they've had with us. So I think the hope is that we're going to set the bar pretty high, not just with wins and losses, but set the bar pretty high for the environment and the training to make sure that we are maximizing everything we can do for those players.
And what's the plan in terms of training? Obviously, you have a lot of your own facilities, but in terms of games, has there been anything confirmed yet as far as facilities?
We'll probably play majority at Century Field, but we have Cool Springs as well. We've been given permission to play at either facility, so it's nice that we have that at our at our bank. If we get a bad weekend weather, we can move inside and play in that absolutely beautiful facility. But we'll use the two facilities both for training and for games.
And like you said earlier, it's to have those facilities to be able to do that. That definitely helps. And just in general, our area. I mean, what would you say to get the general public maybe to come out and support the team? You're in the South Hills area, but just what would you say to get people to come out and to see these? It's a high level of play. You've been around it with the Fort Pitt Regiment. I've seen, the Hotspurs and the Steel City team before they switched to Hotspurs. I mean, it's a pretty high level. What do you think would be a good thing for people to come out and want to see some of these games?
I think it's going to be a pretty exciting brand of soccer. One of the things that John taught me when we were rolling was like, when you're on the road, you protect the game. When you're at home, you put on the show. So I think when we're in our venues, we're going to put the show on, and I think we're going to have the players to be able to do that. It's going to be exciting. And I think for all the young players in the area, on the boys' side, we've been lucky enough to have the Riverhounds all these years, and there's some good role models there and some great players there, and the opportunity. So to come out and see some of these guys, it might be some of the guys that play tomorrow for the Riverhounds, the next time for the Riverhounds, because I think we'll certainly have some of those guys that are possibly good enough to play in that area. And then to see the women, to have two teams here, and to be able to see the women's game played at a really high level. We're lucky that we're getting that right now with some of the colleges in the area too, right? There's been a turn, but be able to see it over the summer, maybe see some of these local players who were high school stars maybe at their schools, and now what they're doing 3 or 4 years later and how they've evolved. And for the young players to be able to see, this is what it should look like at that level. This is where you should set your goals and where it can be. I think it'll be really exciting. So we're hoping to have the whole match day experience. Some of the experiences we had with the regiment, Detroit City FC and Lansing, and we're hoping to try and mimic some of that stuff. It'll be tough with Detroit City after being there and seeing that experience. But I at least I have the vision in my head to hope we can get there and head in that direction.
Yeah, and the travel seems to be about the same for both, like Ohio Valley. Like you've got the Rust Belt kind of cities, the Detroit, Cleveland's, Buffalo for some of those. Syracuse and yeah. All right. So in terms of, kind of what your thoughts are in terms of, hold on, sorry. All right. So sorry about that, Dave. We're getting ready to wrap things up. Just any kind of final thoughts and in terms of, what things look like now between now and I guess it's going to be May-ish for both clubs, or what the timetable will look like. I know there's a lot of unknowns with the college seasons.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're trying to keep our ear to the ground, do the best, work with the people we know that can advise us in the area. I would think it's sometime in May. You'll start seeing the teams take the field for some type of camp. And then I assume, I know the season opens early May. I assume most of us probably won't play till late May, early June, which is the same thing with the regiment and the NPSL. Because we're not even on to have the D1 players until after May 1st. And a lot of them don't get back until the second week of May anyway. So by the time you get a little bit of a camp in and get it rolling, you're usually around Memorial Day. So I expect us kicking off sometime around Memorial Day. We'll certainly have it out all over social media and everything. And hopefully, John, you'll be able to come down and join us, be our guest for some of the games.
Absolutely. Not me. It'll be, Rachel or some others from Pittsburgh Soccer Now for sure. One question that escaped me, and it's just come back to my mind, is you were talking about the WPSL and having the two teams and, the high level of play, the female player in this area. at what point do you think we can ever get to that next level? You think Pittsburgh could really, I think, like, is this an important moment because you've got not just one, but you've got two WPSL teams. If it translates into great competition, high level of play, interest is there. And that's the piece that I'm curious to see how it goes, because there's always been that little bit of talk, like, could a women's pro team, at the highest level in the United States do well in Pittsburgh, or can they sustain themselves? And it's just a question I think a lot of us would love to see answered sometime in the future. But what are your thoughts on that? Just on that.
I would love to see it happen. I've been lucky enough to be a part of this scene, both as a player and a coach for 40 years now at this point. And the one thing is we've always had our fight. We've always had the bite, everything like that. But over the past 10 years, the quality of play in this area has significantly improved. And I think there's a lot of clubs doing a really good job in development right now. If you look at even the girls, from many of us, from us or Beeling or the Hounds that have put into college in the past 5 or 6 years, on the women's side, they're playing at really high levels and they're doing really well. And that's something and I don't mean just us as Century, but all of us. I know there's always the competition between the clubs. We should all be very proud of what we've done in the area and how we've changed the game over the past 10 years. And I think it's just going to keep getting better and better. When you bring in, you have the ECNL with the Riverhounds, and now you have the Girls Academy with both Beeling and Century. I mean, you're talking, that's a pretty high level of play for youth on the women's side. It's the highest levels in the country. So the teams that are coming into Pittsburgh now, and the ECNL teams in Ohio Elite and OP and those guys in the GA, Michigan, the Nationals, Jaguars, Sporting St. Louis, some of those teams that are coming in now, like some of the best players in the country are coming through Pittsburgh to play right now. So we're not just at a professional level, but a youth level. There are some really good soccer games going on in Pittsburgh right now. I would love to see a women's team get to this area, but I would also love to see some type of equality in the women's game, where the teams, there's as many teams for the women as there are for the men, because there's just as many women's players in this country, but for whatever reason, we don't have nearly as many women's pro teams. So I would love to see them be able to expand what they're doing and get in or partner with the MLS or whatever they need to do to get in to expand the amount of women's teams that are in the country and give more opportunities to more of our great women's players.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way. And I'm really anxious to see how the next 5 to 7 years go as far as all of that goes. It should be a very exciting time. And, this summer hey, last summer was rough for a lot of us, but we're excited about the possibilities. It feels like everything's going to happen, and that there's going to be these opportunities for college players will continue to, and these developmental opportunities for the younger adult players, they're going to be there, and Century United's going to be there to provide that. So we're excited. So Dave, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much for being with me, and looking forward to seeing you guys out there this summer.
Well, thanks so much, John. We're honored to be on today, and happy to be on anytime you need us to. Look forward to seeing you at the games this year.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good one.
Thanks, John. You too.
All right.